Upgrades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for yet again another movie review. This time we are going back in time for a remake. This is The Little Mermaid. This is a remake from the 1989 Little Mermaid, and this is an all-star cast. We've got first up Halle Bailey as Ariel, Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. I think it's Jonah Hazer King as Eric. We got Jacob Timberlake as Founder. David Diggs as Sebastian, and I think Javier Bardem as King Triton. I have here Mike and Nat. What's going on, guys?
Hey,
what are you doing?
We are about to talk about this. You guys are I'm gonna say fans of the original. I'm gonna say that. Is that accurate? Suffice to say.
It's not one of my favorites, but my memory is up to par.
Okay.
It's top 5.
Top 5 Disney animated for you.
Yep, it's in my top 5.
Okay, I can definitely say my wife, this is one of her favorite Disney films. So for me, that is not the case at all. So this is going to be a very fascinating review. I know music, right? I know the songs, but there are only certain ones I go back to and rewatch. This was one of those ones I did not have on VHS. So this is going to be a very fascinating review, but let's go ahead and kind of kick right into gear for this time around. So, I mean, the fact is Halle Bailey as Ariel. I'm just going to ask both of you guys, how do you guys think she handled this? Like her performance, how she, kind of embodied Ariel, if she did for you guys, and then of course her singing capability. And I'll tag off of that from what you guys say.
Halle was it. Halle did it. Like she was Ariel. Like her singing was top notch. I was singing along with her. I was there in spirit. She made the songs that she was singing her own. I mean, Jodie Benson, her singing, Part of Our World is always going to be like a classic. But I do think that Halle Bailey, that passes torch now. She owns it now, or at least, for present day. And I feel like the little girls out there will be super happy with her. She was just amazing. I have no complaints about her performance as Ariel, even with, the acting and not the non-singing parts of it, of course. She was playful. She was curious. She was, stubborn. That's Ariel if you think about who she is as a character. So, I mean, Halle did it. And I think it was great casting. Like, I knew from her singing alone that she would get it, but I haven't seen too much of her as an actor. So it was just nice to see her acting. So there you
go. Okay. Mike, what about you from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with Halle in terms of her acting, especially with her sister Chloe. Whether it goes into them, being in Grownish or the other films like that. But really, I can tell that Halle, she really want to go pursue more of her acting career, and especially now donning one of the biggest tasks is playing a Disney princess. But she definitely delivered. The vocals, we never underestimated that she couldn't sing, but this film, again, that was one of the biggest highlights of this film, was just her singing, especially just the beginning of this film. and seeing way just the power of her voice, not just of the actress of Halle Bailey, but also just the character of Ariel. Yeah, she really just embodied that, the innocence, the curiosity of it, the naiveness too. The Ariel that was followed with the 1989 film. But again, they stay consistent with this, with the terms of essence, what the character was supposed to be. But Halle delivered.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can definitely say that. I mean, one, her performances from a vocal standpoint, her range is ridiculous. There are certain moments in the film where she's kind of in her head, even singing and processing the world around her. I think that the way that they kind of sculpted that and allowed her voice to kind of flush out Ariel even more. I think they did a really good job with that. I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike. Like her innocence, like her not just being naive. I think it's weird. So my memory of the original, like Ariel was definitely naive, but Ariel in this one, like it wasn't so much like her naivete. It was more so she felt trapped, and so it was like she's tempted and dealing with a new world that she wanted to experience by any means necessary, and what was the cost to that. And I think that I mean, the way that she delivered like what Ariel wanted versus what we knew where it was going to happen, I think she did a really good job with that. But yeah, let's switch gears with this because there's been a lot of remakes. I want to know from you guys' perspective what kind of stands out with this one versus the other remakes that we've had, whether it's the storyline, whether it's the vocals, and I'll add something to that because again, I told you guys personally, I don't think I'd go and rewatch the original animated one again. But for some reason with this one, is yes, there's cheesy moments, but because I think they made it their own, and I couldn't pick line for line. I hate when even when I looked at the Lion King, I was like, this is exactly the same. I mean, of course, they didn't have, Jeffrey Irons come back as Scar, but it was kind of like it was the exact same. And it's like for me, I was like, I could just go back to the animated one and there's no need for this remake, you know what I mean? And like with this one, it was very fascinating because I was like, this is such a very not even just the fact of the color casting, like having like ethnically, like all across the board, like different fleshed out characters and like new faces, but more so like how they kind of positioned it. Because I didn't think it was going to work for 2 hours and a half. I was like, you're going to lose me there. But for some kind of way, they made this work. So this was a standout remake for me because of that. And so I wanted to kind of get you guys to process your thoughts on like what worked with this, why this was different, or why this is something you could have been a little bit better as a remake, in your own opinion. Mike, I'll let you go first. I thought you might say
Well, again, the runtime for this film being 2 hours long, I was like, okay, what's all right? What we can do? And we hear also a bunch of things are going to change, and there's definitely changes. Without giving anything away, there are definitely major changes other than the obvious that happened in this movie in terms of plot. But I have to say, none of the changes I felt actually made the film different in terms of the way of my experience as a film fan. I guess it's for the hardcore fans. Whether I think that's kind of the question, which I'll pass it over to Natasha soon about the changes that they make and how big of its significance to people who followed this character for so long. But with this film, I felt one with the visual effects. Obviously, since Avatar, every water scene it's gonna be compared. There's no way. Um, so, uh, but with this, I gotta say, even then, as even with Disney, with the Sebastian and other characters, modernizing it into a concept where it doesn't look ridiculous, but yet you still get that type of almost Disney-fied feel with these characters, where it's like, okay, you can tell that's a crab, tell that's a fish, whatever, but they're actually the way they are animated, their face, their expressions. I guess to me, I guess that was a standout in this film. But also even in terms of character motivations, different from the original film. I
yeah.
felt now again going back to Halle Bailey, how she portrayed the character. I think kind of was different in a way that served her character because you did give more of an innocence because of didn't feel like, oh, I just want to go outside in this new world. be a part of this world. I'm feeling I'm being bondage of my father. He's not letting me, be free. And yes, we had that nod in the original, but this was definitely heavily implied in this film. So I give that note to that.
A little bit more focus on it. Yeah, I can see that. Nat?
There are definitely things that I like that I thought was an improvement of the original. There are some things that irked me, especially around the tail end of it. I don't understand why they just didn't, yeah. But I do think overall, I like some of the new characters that we got introduced to in this movie. I think it helped flesh out other characters, which I really appreciated because I just feel like, at least with the original, we didn't really get enough time with some people. And so it's like when you see a connection, it's kind of like, well, where is this really coming from? I don't really know you like that. When you think of it realistically as an adult, as a little kid, you don't care. But now with this live action remake, it's kind of like, okay, this feels a little more authentic than what it was in the original, and that again I appreciate. But for me, there's just nitpicky things that they changed, and I'm kind of like, really, was that really necessary? But yeah.
Yeah, I think I will say that when I was watching it with these two, they were like, oh my gosh, why did they change this? Oh my gosh, they got this right. Oh my gosh, I'm singing. Oh my gosh, I'm sad. Like they were going through different ranges of emotions. And so for me, it was like looking at it for the first time. I have not seen the original in years. So it's kind of like I don't have a shoe in the game, so to speak, because like when like they were like, oh, they changed this scene. I was like, oh, it worked for me. And then when there were certain singing moments, I was like, was this song in there? And they were like, nah, this is a brand new song. I think that you have to understand what you're trying to convey to the new audience of this generation. Like you have to, it's an equal measure. You have to pay tribute and honor to what the fans remember, but also be able to have people like me that are cynics that didn't care for the original. And how do you make it work for me? For this one, honestly, Eric worked better for me in this one. Like I was kind of like, I don't really give a care about Eric. Eric is the pretty boy that has the world, and this girl is just giving up her life for this man. Whereas this Eric is very different, in my opinion. Like I was kind of like, I get what he loves. I get where his first love started and then where it went. And even when you have like random side characters, like Aquafina had a character named, I think, Scuffle. I was kind of like, I don't really see her needed, but they made her work. Now, I will say there's a negative. I have this one negative I have about anything about this. She had a couple different songs that I don't think needed to be songs. I think they could have just been I don't know. They could have Doried it up. Let's just say it like that. Because her character played like a Dory from Finding Nemo. And instead of like just kind of letting her speak, they kind of had her sing and it just didn't work. And I mean, Daveed Diggs as Sebastian, he's the GOAT because one, the man can sing. Like I love Daveed Diggs. I look at anything he has, and I think that initially I was kind of concerned about him because he's laying on a very thick accent. And I was kind of like, is this gonna actually work? And eventually I started kind of being like, I like it because he's not making it exactly the same, but he's giving me enough remembrance to what I remember of Sebastian, but at the same time making it a very different thing. Like all these characters are flawed because of their ambitions. And it's just very fascinating to see kind of how they did it. Did any of you guys have any specific characters you want to talk on before we kind of move on to negatives and then conclusions?
I guess we can talk about Ursula. Because I also know, if you guys don't know, behind the scenes of this film, there are many people that for this role, other than Melissa McCarthy, was actually Lizzo, and I'm like, and much of that diverse that this film is, I'm actually taking a step back and watching this. I actually think that Melissa McCarthy, she actually really embodied Ursula, the voice, the sinister nature of her. Again, I thought also the design of her tentacles as a visual standpoint, I really liked. Again, there's some, if people could want to nitpick about some visual elements, Yeah, you could, but to me, I get that the essence what I remember of Ursula when I was younger watching this film, and while I'm watching it now, I thought, yep, this is this is just almost textbook. I'd also say I did like some visual points again, going back to just terms of the visual effects in this film, and then with Ursula. And as when you watch an animated film, there's only so much you can do. I'm looking like, and you knowing the story, I'm like, how are they actually going to do this scene? How are they going to do this? And it actually paid off. It actually paid off. I was like, okay, I see what you did there creatively, but I give them pointers for that because it can easily make this overly ridiculous too. But again, I really thought that she did provide a good, contrast to Halle Bailey's Ariel.
Yeah, I do want to speak up before Nat goes. I initially kind of was like, Melissa McCarthy is actually a good actress. Like she's a great comedian, and given the right script and given the right opportunities, she can really sell a character. She sounded nothing like Melissa McCarthy for one, but I think the visual look of how she moved around like a squid, I thought that was dope. I think that she really I think that we saw a movie last night where another actor kind of just enjoyed just going immerse himself, and I think that she's no different from this. I think she really contributed a lot. I think she did a really good job. It was very menacing. It didn't feel cheesy, which I thought it was going to be very clunky and really cheesy. There were certain scenes that kind of took me out, but I thought she did a really good job actually. Nat, any you want to compliment on Ursula or any other character?
Um, Definitely Ursula, and again, Eric. I agree about Eric as a character. Uh, I was pleasantly surprised with Melissa McCartney because I didn't know what to expect, how she was designed, anything like that, because I only saw the teaser trailer. I didn't want to see anything else if I could help it before seeing this movie. And so when I finally saw her on screen, and a lot of what she did was in the original. So as far as embodying Ursula, she did it. Um, did they change some things here and there? And I agree with both of you, especially her design, the costuming, and how she flowed in the water, and of course the iconic scene uh, near the end. Um, it was okay. I saw a little glimpses here and there. I'm like, yeah, they probably could have punched that up a little bit better. But I think overall it worked. So Melissa McCarthy, I salute you because Ursula is one of my top villains. Same thing with this movie being like one of my top movies as far as like Disney movies, nostalgia wise. Ursula is definitely one of my top villains, and so I got to give kudos to her. She definitely impressed me.
Now, this is a non-spoiler review, so we're not going to go into spoilers. But they do some very different things in the back half that we're not going to talk about. But for me, I was all for it. I was all for the smoke. I was like, just change it all. I don't even care. I'm enjoying myself. I'm entertained. But do you guys have any negatives? I already spoke on my negatives. I thought that some of the singing moments with Aquafina didn't work. Some of the singing numbers that they added in, I didn't have any issue with. I do think that some of the underwater stuff at times was a little jarring. You could tell sometimes where it didn't work, and then other times I was really impressed that Disney did it as good as they did. So everything I'd be kind of talking around would be kind of nitpicky because they kind of kept it as close to what I remember. But if you guys had any negatives, let's go through it and then we'll leave our concluding score.
Yeah, I guess going to Aquafina was taking me out. I did not know she was in this movie. So when she's like would start talking like that Aquafina, like, yeah. And there's one scene with her and Sebastian in the film again. When this moment happened, and I'm just like, okay, all right, you know what? I'm like, I can nitpick, but let's let it be, let it be. Yeah, but yeah, that was the only thing. Again, but the way they used her, I guess wasn't overdone. But just again, I just felt like you asked me what was my weakest part of the film. Well, yeah, it was with her. Her character, but yeah, that's really other than that. Again, going to Tasha point, the third act, I'm like, okay, yes, there could have been changes they could have done in the original, that if they just let it be would have made it better. But now because it wasn't there, and the change was made, do I think that it made again made the film turn worse? In my opinion, no. It just me personally, I felt they should have kept it the way it was, and then it would have been a little bit better. But what we got, I wasn't really like highly disappointed. But I was like, oh, okay, this all right, cool. This is what we're doing. All right.
And just for context, I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't even remember the end of the original. So when they were talking, I was like, okay, y'all are okay. Whatever y'all talking about, I have no issue with what's going on. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, something that they did in the third act. I was more irked and a little bit annoyed, but not so much that it takes away the overall enjoyment of the movie. I kind of understand again why they did it, and it's kind of like a full circle thing as far as the development of the main character. So it kind of makes sense, but it's just a little bit annoying, and I feel like it would have had more weight for certain conversations later. So I think Aquafina kind of annoyed me too. I don't know if it was her voice or what. I just feel like because she sounds like herself, I'm just like, can you sound just slightly different? But Scuttle as a character was fine because it's very similar to the movie or the original movie. Oh, another thing that kind of irked me was I'm starting to notice something when it comes to the live actions. You kind of cut off certain songs or you leave certain lyrics out. And I'm not going to say which song, but you can kind of guess where I'm going, because when you talk about iconic villains, you can't be cutting people's songs off, okay? You did it in The Lion King. I feel like you did it in another movie, but you can't keep doing that. They're iconic for a reason. Their songs, that's their songs. Let them sing the whole thing. I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna ask a question for both of you guys, not as fans, but just as critics, fellow critics, / journalists. I'm gonna say it a nice way. If you never listened to those songs and you just saw it for the very first time, like, do you guys think that newcomers that are just watching it, like little girls, for seeing this for the very first time, are you think it's going to be that big of an impact for them to not have the songs progress, or is it more so for your guys' remembrance of what the movies were or what the songs were or certain placements? Which one do you think is? Because I do think that there is weight to say, like, oh, okay, if there's this one specific lyric or this specific scene, it would have more resonance. But then I think there's another thing where it's like, I remember this. Why would you change this? Like, why remove this from what we remember that is already great? So which one is a combination, is amalgam of both, or is it one or the other? Because I think I want to iron that out just because this is a featured review. I'm not hazing you guys. I'm just curious.
As the youngest one here, I would say, like, I wouldn't be. You wouldn't again. There was like children in the audience who were watching, and it's like they wouldn't. I guess like if you weren't really that analyzing, and watch and listen to like these songs, you wouldn't even picked up, till once you're older. Like, wait a minute. So, but yeah, it really didn't like bother me. But as someone who's a fan of these properties and just talking about consistency, and they do it, and for Disney as a corporation, they did it over and over and over again. And I'm like, now I'm picking it. Now when it happens, like, why'd you do that? But yeah, that's just my opinion.
It's a little bit of both. I understand that for new audiences, it wouldn't matter. But I think because if you include, the songs from the original movie and you keep everyone else's lyrics, but then you cut off one song when you already have like a 2-hour movie, you could have cut other stuff. But why did you cut this? So it's one of those things where it's like, really? Did you really have to? Was it really necessary? But I see, again, it's kind of like a catch-22 with me. So yes, for nostalgia reasons, just include it. But for new audiences, I get that it wouldn't matter to them.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when other songs are, you have the whole thing, the original song. I think that's what irks me more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, to even put myself in the boat, right? If this was The Lion King, and when Lion King came out, I was looking at it with my son, brought him to the movie theater, and I was kind of like, man, if they don't play I Can't Wait to Be King, I may have a problem with that. Or if they change that up, I personally myself will feel like, you're cheating the audience, right? But I think that's the balancing act, because if this was a point to point exactly like the original, it would have took me out. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. And I'm not saying that they don't have to put exactly the same exact lyrics and make their own spin to it. I think that there's definitely regard to do that, but I think that I also don't want it to be exactly the same. Like, there's some stuff that, I mean, I guess it's a question of what do you leave off and what do you gain, kind of thing. But I think it's a good conversation, because I think that a lot of people want to know what makes a good live action, Disney movie remake. But yeah, so closing thoughts on this one. What do you guys rate it from A to F? And where does this rank as far as the Disney remakes for you guys?
It's definitely between like an A- and a B+, because of me nitpicking. I feel like it would be like an A+ if I wasn't nitpicking. Like it would definitely be an A+ if I wasn't nitpicking. But it's still a good remake or a live action. I definitely consider it better than the Lion King live action. I feel like it's about the same as Aladdin for me as far as entertainment and kind of like what they incorporated or added that was actually an improvement, or something that added more to the film, or to the original, based on the original. So I mean, I don't really have a favorite live action, but I feel like that would be one of them it's like leading very narrowly as far as the movies go, which isn't saying much either. So,
right,
that makes sense.
So, is it in your top 3? I'll make it easier for you.
Yeah, it's definitely in the top 3.
Okay, that's fair. Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna just give it a hardcore F for all the woke politics they've been putting in these movies. It's been, this has just been a ridiculous. It's not accurate at all. All the diversity in this, it's just, these parents. Listen, y'all, the melanin in this movie appalls me. Anyway, I give it a minus. Only because for me, other than Lion King and shoot. I'd say Maleficent, only because it's in terms of my favorites. I do put this up apart beyond like Beauty and the Beast, my personal opinion, and Cinderella. I really enjoyed it. Again, I think a lot of people can really be impacted with this film. And again, everyone's I think gonna be taking something out of it when they bring kids and especially little girls to go see this film. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. For me, as a person that did not care for this movie, like the original animated, was not excited for this at all. I pleasantly had a great time. It's either a B+ or maybe an A-. I'm gonna leave it at a solid B+. I think when I go and see it with my wife, who is a huge fan, it may bump up to an A-. As far as where it stacks up with these insanely amazing movies. Cruella is on top. Number 1.
Never mind.
Maleficent is number 2. But you know what? I'm torn, because part of me really likes some things they did with Beauty and the Beast. I did like what Jon Favreau did with the Jungle Book. And as much as I wanted Lion King to be good, it just didn't hit. And Aladdin, the same exact feeling. I'm gonna probably put this one at number 3 or number 4 for me. I'm not sure what number 3 is, but I think I put it at 3 or 4 as far as the live action. But Cruella, I think, is the gold standard. If they can find ways of making these kind of spin off in certain ways like these two. And I think that's the fascinating difference with it. Maleficent and Cruella, to their own right, are kind of like spin-offs, you know? It's not like a shot for shot, point for point, but they made them really great movies. This may be the best point for point at this current time. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Any other closing thoughts, guys, before we close out?
Go see it and see it for yourself. Just go see it. You'll be singing right along like we did, especially with the iconic songs. And you may even like want to listen to the soundtrack and the score. I mean, the score is very similar to the original movie, which I again appreciated, but I think they added a few things. I wasn't really paying much attention, but I did notice when they did, reflect back on the original score. So.
Yeah, I can't. People can have a field day with this movie, the good and the bad. I'll just say that. So I can't wait for it, just because it's like it could be people gonna be nitpicking some things and everything, and hopefully it's gonna be disruptive, in the industry right now, because we need it at this moment, especially with writer strikes and everything things that been going on. I just would like to know a film to be good and everyone just go to the theaters and have a good time. The movie gonna make $1 billion, by the way. Just letting you know.
Yeah,
possibly.
We were kind of taking dibs on the movie we looked at yesterday, which is Fast 10, whether or not that was gonna make $1 billion, and this could. I mean, this is actually a decent remake, so it's very possible and very plausible. I didn't bring it up because it doesn't make or break the film, but it is great to see good representation, that they didn't use it as
they were dangling like keys in front.
They didn't use it to pull people in. It just was a natural thing. Like, even down to like, the setting of where this is actually taking place, it made sense. You'll understand what we mean once you see the movie, but I thought that was a very fascinating twist. But we're gonna go. I'm going to sleep. Y'all take care. Oh, where can everybody find you, Jedi Mike?
Yeah, you can find me here on TeamJVS as well, man. You can also find me on my YouTube channel at Jedi Mike 7, do movie reviews and breaking down films and everything. You hit notification bell on your way out.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll be back, you guys. Take care. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and go and check out The Little Mermaid. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. All right, guys. Peace. Filing out the top of I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline.